So you're new to BoxCutter. The first thing to understand is that if you are set to cut and your mode is set to box and your alignment is set to object, that means that if you hover your mouse over the surface and you click and drag, you will create a shape, and when you let go, it will allow you to extrude, and then when you click again, it will apply. And that in itself is the basic use of BoxCutter. If you begin your stroke off the surface, because it has nothing to align to, it will begin a view aligned cut. So on the fly, you can actually cut in a view aligned fashion while also cutting aligned to the surface whenever it's needed. So this is something that we have really worked hard on inside of 2.8 to make a lot more versatile than it used to be. However, it is still a work in progress and is the default system of alignment and orientation whenever you're using BoxCutter. But just like this, you see that I'm able to cut utilizing view and also utilizing surface on the fly, depending on what type of maneuver I need to go through. Even though I'm kind of using it in a silly context here, this is the basis of how you would use BoxCutter. So we'll delete this cube and I will Shift A, add another cube. And the next thing I want to show is snapping. So right now I have snap on, and we don't have grid on at this time, but I do have these snap vertices. And if these are enabled, that means that I can actually hover over them until they highlight, and then when I click, I can actually use them as a jump off point. So when it comes to drawing, there are certain modifiers. There's holding Alt in order to be able to pull the shape out from the center. There's also Shift to allow you to pull the shape out equilaterally from the center. So sometimes I will use this to cut a shape similar to this and bring it precisely down the middle of the face. We could also do it again with the face that we cut in every time. There's been special care taken with snapping to ensure that it does not take the bevel into consideration. So if we were to use HardOps to put a bevel on top of this, then we see that the dots don't actually show up for the bevel, because that would make things a lot more computationally heavy and complicated. So special care was taken in those regards to allow you to be able to use dots at various steps of the process in order to quickly find what I consider the winners of an edge selection to quickly get places. Someday I do want to expand on it and add maybe multiple variants inside the middle to allow people to get halves of halves and things like that. But as far as starting points go, every cut gives you more starting points that you're able to play off of. So this is kind of one of the things that I take advantage of inside of BoxCutter. And then if I make a mistake, I'll use something like Bull Scroll with HardOps to bring back my cutter. And then we can just go in and lower the bevel and make adjustments to the shape in order to make it fit. Of course, bevel is its own auditor that I have many videos talking about. However, in this case, we are using it just to add a nice little additional touch to the edges, just to get a very nice result. We see that because of this end gun, we have our face here, which we will use to our advantage, but I can hold Shift and keep it live in the event that I just want to press G and Z and just move it around freely. So that in a nutshell is how you can kind of come to terms with how you would get started with BoxCutter. And the workflow of working on a box is something that I refer to as Box City. So with everyone getting started with BoxCutter, I recommend that you press N, open your N panel, and expand on your help. And just as you're using BoxCutter, just look at the hotkeys showing and just use them to get the best of what BoxCutter has to offer, because the more hotkeys that you're using, the faster you are and the more that you're getting done without having to click on panels and deal with things like that. But of course, you can always press Control D to go in here and change your cut type if you're trying to slice or make or anything like that. But really, if I were trying to slice this, it would be much easier for me to just press X, press G to move it around a little bit, just so it's not getting clinched by the bevel. Maybe shift it to live, move this face over, get a very nice result here. And then even maybe use HardOps Alt M to just slap this with a blank material and then repeat that all over again. I'll start off with a cut, press X, make it into a slice, transform it. I don't know why I'm always transforming differences into slices. It's just the way that I like to work. And then of course, blank material on that as well. And as we keep cutting, we're just kind of building up this blank material library, but I'm just trying to show in a controlled fashion just a little bit of how I work with BoxCutter, just in a pure box cutter fashion. In addition to being able to draw shapes as you see me doing here, you can also control double click in order to repeat a shape. So if you draw a shape that you like, you are able to repeat. So if I press Control N, we can go back to a default scene. And here's one of my favorite ways that I like to demonstrate repeat is with N-Gon. And so we'll just jump N-Gon to regular via Alt Scroll, and we'll just create a very quick shape and roll that in like so. And now we'll just switch to box and Control double click. And instead of Control double clicking, we'll Control Shift double click in order to bring the shape in and also keep it live. And we'll do the same thing again and just keep repeating the shape every time we bring it in order to get a very interesting result. But there's just so many possibilities that you're able to get out of repeat shape. Here's another one where I will just draw a shape and then just cut inside of it. We can draw a box around it and extract this shape and just draw this shape out, hold shift to constrain it. We'll just draw it at the size that we want. So now this shape is the last shape drawn just by Control double clicking. And let's say we don't want these weird dots in the way because they're not really helping us. We can just turn that off and then Control double click. You can see it's repeating the shape and it's just fading out every time we repeat the shape. So that way we're able to easily just get the most out of this shape and just plant it wherever we need to, align to the surface. In fact, I can just Shift A at another cube, move this thing over like a light year away, and then Control double click on this thing to just really start making my way with it. And the thing about extraction and proportional cutting fitting together is that one of these shapes we got to talk about. That shape didn't work out. You know what, we're just going to remove it. But the thing about proportional cutter working with custom is that I can draw with this, cutting out everything, press Y, make it an extraction, and then I can just go to another face on another side, draw this out, press period to draw from center, and this is a perfect one-to-one proportional cut, allowing me to repeat these circles except for the one that's cursed. I saw that, I'd be madman to pretend that didn't happen. In fact, I bet we could fill that face and now we're good to go. So let's see what happens if we repeat it again. We switch back over to custom, and I'm just showing you a little bit of how I personally use BoxCutter. I'm going to check into why that face wasn't full, but with that, you can now see that we're able to repeat this shape that we started way off in the center. In fact, I can't even jump back to the center now because of how nuts things is in space. So we can just delete this shape. Maybe I deleted the original shape. Nope. That one is the original shape. That one is the huckster. And even with this shape, what happens when we Control double click? We actually repeat the entire cutter set that we did, even with our bad circle. Let's say that, we're sick of this bad circle, and I'm personally sick of that bad circle. So let's go to collection 2. First we have to get out of local mode. And then we can go to collection 2, make sure it's enabled. And this is our shape. I just don't feel like one of these is full, so I'm just trying to locate which one it is. It looks like that one's alright. Maybe it's this one. Maybe these extractions are going to make a fool out of me in this video. Anyways, doesn't matter. But the point is you can repeat things, you can clone things, you can extract things, and with that, you're able to get the most out of the cutters that you put in a mesh. In fact, everything that you extract, you can just reuse over and over. And then, of course, if you want to plan it one for one and have perfect reusability, that, of course, is what we recommend HardOps for. But even in this case where I'm using wedge, I'm just pulling this shape ever so strangely, and we can just get in here and repeat it as a wedge. That's obviously not the result that we want with this, so I'm not going to be able to play that off. I'm going to need to press E, see what's going on with this thing. It's madness. Oh, it's total madness. Let's actually bring up snap dots. I'm going to use this one as our jump off point. Some things, you just can't repeat. And so this example just kind of shows that. I bet these shapes actually exist on the inside. If I really wanted to, like, understand this, right, I would get in here and start unearthing this, like as if I'm studying fossils, grab all the perimeter sides. Maybe not that one. No, that one's not going to work out. And here we are back to where we started, except this mesh is a darn monstrosity, except even that can be cleaned up. I mean, we look at this, and if we do a manifold check, we see that there's still a little bit of rubbish that has to be dealt with. So it probably is worth talking about some of the features that are coming with the new Boolean inside of Blender 2.91, but I should be saving that probably for another chapter. But continuing on, I just want to show a little bit about the troubleshooting process and how that can come about whenever you're working, because here I am just ensuring that this mesh is completely manifold. Let's say that I'm so into this mesh that I want it to work out. So here I am just looking for non-manifold, non-connected areas that I'll just collapse the distance on, maybe just slightly. And it looks like we're almost there. We got a few doubles. This mesh is not going to go out without a fight. But, this is actually part of the course right here. Whenever you're using Boolean tools, you're going to eventually run into Boolean problems. So troubleshooting is just one of those things. In the HardOps video, also did a section talking about troubleshooting. So hopefully, even showing this process that I just went through of just grabbing the shape and scanning it over and over with select boundary loop, and then turning it into a manifold shape. I mean, we lost our circles in the process, but what we gain is a fully manifold shape that I can just scroll back until I get to box, and we're just cutting this shape exactly as we want. So with that, we are now basically good to go on this shape to continue on our journey with it. So anytime you run into a geometric issue, I just wanted to at least be known that whenever these things happen, yes, issues will happen, but it's also important to get in and find out why they happen and troubleshoot that process to maybe even further your own geometric understanding of what happens with polygon modeling that makes things difficult. We see that this particular extraction did not work out, and more than likely this is because of surface extract not being enabled, which we'll be talking about when we get to extract. But we'll just draw another box around this, press Y, we've extracted that piece, and now we can just repeat it perfectly. We can rotate it, I guess, on the Z in this case, so weird. Maybe press G, move it a little bit, get it positioned, maybe we actually want it something like that. And there we are, adding a much more controlled version of this area that we rebuilt out of everything that we were dealing with. And this may seem rather heavy for some of the fundamentals of BoxCutter, but sometimes whenever you're using it, these are the things that may come up. So the tools for troubleshooting are definitely here. Like I just use bull scroll, not for scrolling through my booleans like a cool Chad, but for going in and finding a problem area, neutralizing it after isolating it, and getting it out of here, because I know there's going to be a problem to me later. But with that, hopefully that gives you a little bit more understanding on some of the fundamentals of how to get started with BoxCutter, and even with troubleshooting a mesh whenever you run into a problem, if you really want an idea that you're going to just work out. Sometimes a cut is a cut is a cut, but you got to get in there and solve it and find out what is the reason that this mesh is just unable to be.